What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where each week I, Treavor Bettis, talk to interesting people about idle champions and Dungeons and Dragons. And with me this week is the amazing Luke Westaway.
Interesting person. Gosh,
yes.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about me. I did it.
I don't believe that for a second.
Well, interesting though. I'll take it. Yeah.
Well, I don't believe for a second that no one said anything better to you about that. I absolutely believe you're an interesting person.
I'll have to go back and check, but I reckon that I think you're the high watermark. I think.
Well, you know what? If I am, I will take that spot. Hey, Luke, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going real good, thank you. How are you?
I am still waking up. It is early my time.
Yeah, thank you very much for being so accommodating. It's 5 p.m. UK time. I think this was originally scheduled for 6 p.m. and then, like a proper diva, I was like, can we do it an hour earlier? Because I need to rest on a chaise longue all evening.
It's totally fine. I think my interview with Ellen was at 8 a.m. my time, so I'm more awake now.
Okay. As long as Ellen was more diva-ish than me, then.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. We're talking about Dobb, because Dobb is as of this showing, when you all out there are seeing this, Dobb is in the game, but you are in the the nice future. We are still in the past where he's not.
The horrible past.
The horrible past.
Idle champions.
Yeah, Utopia has not happened yet when Dobb has entered Idle Champions.
Yeah, come on. So for you people in the future, in your good reality.
So I want to start things off the way that I usually do on this show by asking, how did you get into D&D?
Okay. I got into D&D in a not particularly glorious or flattering way, which the group that I play with, none of us had ever played it before. And we sort of thought it would be funny to watch people who had never played D&D try and play D&D, because we were imagining that actually D&D was very complicated and there would be lots of rules and there might be some inherent comedy to be extracted basically from watching us fumbling around. We thought it would be our DM going like, "Oh, what I've told you about ranged spell attack, why don't?" And we're like, "What? But there's so many dice," or something. However, we completely underestimated how accessible D&D is, and actually, in that first session, we had a brilliant time. And so it ended up not being the video that we sort of imagined, but did end up being the start of us playing a lot more D&D. We have an incredible DM, Johnny Chiodini, who already has a character in Idle Champions.
Indeed.
And yeah, so we're really lucky to have them and their like terrific work, and they just did a wonderful job of onboarding us to the world of D&D. But yeah, so the first time I played D&D was on camera. I have played it since off camera. Yeah. Like running, I ran some campaign for some friends and stuff like that. But the majority of my D&D career is all out there, if you want to pick it apart and
that's so cool, though. That's really cool. I think that's really neat. I do kind of love though. It's like you go to. It was almost like when you watch a movie that everyone said was terrible, and you're like, "Oh crap, do I like this?" You're there to just make fun of it, but then you're just like, "Oh wait, this is kind of fun."
I'm ashamed to say that is absolutely what my attitude was going in, because my exposure to D&D was just that I've always been a big nerd and love video games and high fantasy and Lord of the Rings and all that kind of stuff. But growing up, the way that D&D was presented to me in pop culture, not by Wizards of the Coast, obviously, but the way it generally kind of manifests in popular culture is that it's a kind of geeky Rubicon that is like really quite something to cross. Do you know what I mean? It's I'm a nerd, but I'm not like a Dungeons and Dragons nerd or something. And also, you have to remember that, like in my youth, when I'm impressionable and absorbing all this stuff, we're talking about an edition of D&D where it's more common to use like figures and boards and stuff. So I think like the kind of D&D visual, for me was always that kind of what eventually Stranger Things ended up glamorizing and making look cool again, which is a bunch of kids wearing like homemade wizard hats sat in their basement playing D&D, which I now realize would have been a truly wonderful way to spend my childhood. But
right.
But I guess I was as much of a snob as you can be when you're a huge nerd who was mostly into like anime and Lord of the Rings and stuff, but considered Dungeons and Dragons too much, which is
The reason I was laughing through that is because I was literally the same way. I've said this on the show before, but I used to be like, well, I play World of Warcraft, but at least I don't play D&D.
Oh God. Yeah, and you know what? In like looking back, I played World of Warcraft really intensely and aggressively for about a year and a half.
Oh, jeez.
And then quit and went cold turkey out of necessity, basically, in order to salvage something of the rest of my life. But you know what? Like, I look back on the World of Warcraft time as a real low, but the D&D times is like a really good.
That's the funny thing for me. It's now switched where I'm just like, well, I play D&D, but at least I don't play World of Warcraft.
Yeah, at least I play World of Warcraft. No shade to anyone playing World of Warcraft.
No,
As I say, I was well into it. What was your main in World of Warcraft?
I was a warlock, Forsaken warlock.
Oh yeah, Tauren druid.
Oh, nice. You're just tanking all the things.
Oh yeah, I was. Yeah. Tank spec. Yeah, just in my bare form.
See, you knew what you were doing. I didn't. I got into a dungeon as a warlock, and I was just like, I'll just do what I always do, and everyone's like, please stop doing that.
Classic DPS. Honestly.
Yes. Yeah. No, I ruined everything.
Fire your lasers or whatever.
Yeah, my zombie warlock just comes in there and just does finger guns. Yeah. Yeah, that's all he does.
That's the dream. When I started playing World of Warcraft, I was like, oh, this is fun. I will stop me if I'm talking too much about World of Warcraft.
Oh, no, you're fine.
When I started playing World of Warcraft, I had this vision that that I would basically play against the rules and be a cool renegade player. And I'll be like, I'll find interesting, unusual ways of making money and leveling up and stuff. And, I had this idea that I would level up enough to get one of the mounts that like other people can ride on. This was around the time of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, and there was that mammoth thing that other people could hop on. So I had the idea that I would basically retire from adventuring once I had enough money to get the mammoth. Which
right off with another player into the sunset.
Yeah, well, it was the most expensive item in the game at the time, and that was my goal. I was like, I get the most expensive item in the game. And then I'll retire and run a taxi firm, and I'll go to the low-level areas and basically accept small amounts of pocket change from new players, and I'll like taxi them, to Ogrimmar or where they need to. Yeah, somewhere further up. But I eventually did that, met that goal, and tried that, and it was boring. So after about 2 minutes, I was like, I guess I better go back to the 40-man raids and stuff, and and get in a bigger guild that has dragon killer points. And anyway, World of Warcraft eventually will become a full-time job, and not a good one.
No,
if you let it get out of control. So yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, we're here today to not talk about World of Warcraft, but Dobb.
The other thing about World of Warcraft.
So funny thing, I actually created Dobb in World of Warcraft. So for folks who may not know, who is Dobb?
Okay, Dobb is a half-orc bard. He is enthusiastic. He's energetic, and he never is held back by a pressure to think things through before he acts. He is acrobatic. His attacks are kind of, like very dexterous. Lots of backflipping and cartwheeling and bouncing off walls and stuff. And most of his powerful attacks, they are bard spells like Thunderwave and Shatter. But the way that I kind of headcanon it, and the way that it is with Dobb, is because he's a bard. He basically kind of sends out these powerful like power chords basically from his lute, just like that, Thunderstruck style.
Yeah,
and everything turns into a sort of 80s heavy metal album cover for a minute, and all his enemies are struck by lightning. Thunderwave is technically supposed to be a kind of wave of thunderous force, but because I didn't play D&D and didn't deign to learn the rules or read anything before I started, in my mind it's always been like a lightning attack kind of.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, when the first time I read it, my mind immediately went to Pokemon with like Pikachu attacks and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I know Thunder Wave.
Yeah, it's an electric attack.
Yeah.
Has a chance to cause paralysis. Is that right? Am I right about Thunder Wave? Hang on, I'll check Bulb.
I think you're right, if I remember correctly.
Don't edit this out. We've got to get this right. Thunder Wave. Non-damaging electric type move.
And it has a chance to inflict paralysis, I believe.
100% accuracy, paralyzes the target. So there you go.
Yeah.
But they spell it as 2 words, so legally they're in the clear. So don't think you can go after the Pokemon.
Reported today, Wizards of the Coast taking on the Pokemon Company.
I wouldn't try it. They've got more money than anyone else ever. Here's a fact about Pokemon. I think I'm right in saying this. It's made. I think it's made. Two. Hang on. Let me get this right. This bit you can edit down. Yeah. Hang on.
You can see the math going through his eyes and everything. He's okay. Yep. No, that's right there.
Well, I just realized I was about to make like a massive claim about Pokemon success that I had no.
And this will be on the internet. You got to be careful with that.
Exactly. You don't want something untrue.
It will be amazing if the comments to this Idle Champions video is just like, he was wrong about Pokemon.
I mean, it would be a nice distraction from all the ways I'm wrong about D&D. So yeah, I'll take it. Okay. Right, so the Pokemon Company, right, has made an estimated $105 billion total revenue, which is about a third more than Star Wars has made since 1977. So, don't try and sue them because they'll tie you up in court. They can keep you there for decades.
Yeah. Oh, that's
It's wild, isn't it?
I don't even know how to react to that information.
Star Wars since 1977. That's including like the Disney era, everything. Yeah. A third as much money.
Well,
sorry, a third more. Yeah.
I have to now process this information while doing an interview.
Sorry, it's not really fair of me, is it?
How dare you
drop a bomb like that and then expect you to.
All right, that's going to be it for Idle Insights this week. We're done. Yeah. So okay. So Dobb is this very acrobatic bard shooting thunder waves and everything like that. And you said that this game was the first time you played D&D, and it was kind of originally for like the humor of it. But like, how did you go about coming up with Dobb? Like, what was kind of the inspiration for him?
I think I chose Bard because I didn't know what everyone else in the group was going to pick. We kind of didn't really talk about it, probably as much as we should have beforehand.
A little bit.
I think we wanted to kind of make it as organic as possible. So, we all just we could have ended up with 3 half-orc bards or whatever. But so part of why I chose Bard was I didn't think anybody else would. So I thought it was a kind of safe one to kind of plant a flag in. Okay. And the more I thought about it, the more I just liked Bard as a class. I'm a sort of enthusiastic musical amateur myself. I can play a few instruments and I love music and I love playing music. So there was that. And once I started to think about it, I started to think about, how do you make a bard cool? And a super tragic backstory is how. So,
of course.
Then I came up with a super tragic backstory for Dobb, obviously.
What is Dobb's super tragic backstory?
Dobb's super tragic backstory is that he never knew his parents, and he grew up with his older sister. And when he was just a young boy, he caught rabies. I think we said it was canonically. Wish I know.
Fantasy rabies.
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I was just like, I don't know, rabies, caught rabies or something from a wolf. And then people in the comments were like, but how did Dobb get better from rabies? And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't really think about that. But anyway, so his sister, tried to cure him, didn't work, but ended up kind of going off to try and find a better cure. In the meantime, Dobb got better, but the sister never came back. So he sort of had to raise himself in the woods, self-taught musician, and basically uses the profession of Bard as a means, as a sort of framework to travel from town to town trying to find his lost sister, who, spoiler alert, he actually has since in the campaign. So yeah. happy times. And personality-wise, I think Dobb is what I've since learned is a real kind of classic first D&D character, which is just like me, but with a few very small personality adjustments.
Yep.
But good personality adjustments. You know, like Dobb. I always think that like Dobb is me without all of my hang-ups. You know, I'm a terrible like overthinker. I'm quite anxious. I have obsessive compulsive disorder, and so you know, I'm not great with like overthinking is like something I really struggle with. So Dobb is just like a brilliant bit of escapism for me, where it's just like his brain is that part of his brain is just basically deactivated, and he, you know. So yeah, so that's how I love playing Dobb. If only I could live as him. Every time I play Dobb, a little more Luke dies.
Well, no, when the transitions, the transformation is fully happening, because Outside Xtra videos just have Dobb as your name down there. It's
that's right.
Let's talk about 7 times that people lost themselves in a character.
That'll be incredibly hard to work with, because I'll be like, "What's this device you're pointing at me?" I'll be like, "Luke,
is this some kind of magic item?
What is this?" Talk to it. Okay, I guess I could deliver my bardly musings into this glass receptacle.
Glass receptacle. That's the worst name I've ever heard for a camera.
Yeah, that's fair. So that's that's the that's Dobb basically in a nutshell. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, you talked about, like, you know, Dobb did eventually find his sister and whatnot. How has the character development been of Dobb since the beginning of that first episode to like now?
Great question. I think one of the things I found really enjoyable about the process of getting Dobb into Idle Champions was that there were a lot of questions about Dobb that I had to answer, way more than I thought, to be honest. I thought
we leave no stone unturned.
Went deep.
Yeah.
Lots of questions that I, struggled to answer about Dobb's, personality and character progression and stuff like that. But actually, I found the process of trying to write it down and codify it a little bit to be quite rewarding and quite helpful. In terms of character progression, I'd say one of the things that's written on Dobb's character sheet is that he has a mistrust of scholastic institutions, like because he kind of raised himself and like didn't go to school or anything. So I think when I first imagined him, I didn't really picture him as much of a team player, especially, kind of used to being that kind of lone wolf. I never wanted to be like, I'm not going in the cave. You guys can go in the cave, but I'm a lone wolf. I'll do things by myself. I never wanted.
Puts on his sunglasses and walks away listening to Depeche Mode. Yeah.
Leave this to me. You folks wait behind. Yeah, I never wanted to do that kind of thing. But I think the character has progressed a lot, and now he's basically got this, group around him who are basically his family. Quite a large extended group of, fellow adventurers and NPCs. And so, I think that's been his main character progression is kind of learning to, just learning to be chill in a big group and, happy to commit. Which is probably why Dobb's most recent storyline was all about him getting married,
Hey!
Yeah. It went poorly.
Oh, no.
I won't go into details, but
Well, you find that out by watching Oxventure and seeing what went poorly.
Yeah. I do want to talk about it, but it happened recently enough that I think it could be kind of considered an Oxventure spoiler. So,
that's totally fair. That's totally fair.
It's probably my favorite kind of Dobb arc that we've had since the since we started playing. So yeah. Okay. There you go. So yeah, Dobb is, a lone wolf again.
Oh no.
He's got a howl. I don't know what that means.
Just every time Dobb does anything, just softly in the background.
Yeah. That kind of keening wolf sound.
Where it's not quite a howl yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the experience of bringing Dobb into Idle Champions, and one of the things that we absolutely love to do is really get bits of the character into the equipment, because while that is something that players do go after quite a bit in the game, we like having them have a big tie to the character. So can you walk us through a bit of like what important things Dobb has in his equipment?
I would love to. Okay, well, why don't we start by talking about let's start with the loot situation.
Yeah.
Dobb has 4 tiers of loot. This is loot L-U-T-E. I guess all of this is loot L-O-O-T.
That is true.
Yeah, but so Dobb has 4 different instruments in the game, which is cool. There's a practice instrument, which is the one that I imagine Dobb basically kind of stole at some point, or had to steal and like self-taught on. And then there's like a slightly more advanced instrument that he had when he started adventuring. There's a double-necked lute.
I noticed that thing is wild.
Yeah, do you want to see it in real life?
Yes.
There's a chance I'll wreck my green screen reaching.
It's worth it.
I'll be back with some loots.
Shadow will be worth it, I promise.
Oh no, I put it upstairs.
No!
Well, I will. I mean,
don't worry. It's okay.
I can find you a picture.
That's fair.
I can find. It's more editing. Sorry.
It is all good. It was worth it for the possibility of double loot.
Sorry. It's in the attic now. I did. But yeah, you can put up a picture. There's many online.
Okay, we'll see if we can find one of those.
Yeah. The double necked lute was because I had one of those in real life.
That's cool.
It was like a really fun prop. It was pretty huge though. We do quite a lot of live shows, and it was quite the thing to kind of transport.
Oh, I bet. That could not have been easy.
No. But that was actually a factor in choosing Dobb's current loot. I say loot, that they're all ukuleles, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because again, when we do it live, there's an element of like performing sometimes and having one, and
oh my gosh,
this is Dobb's current loot, which is this kind of in universe. It's a sort of cursed instrument from the cursed musical instrument dimension.
Oh my god,
it's cool, isn't it? It's kind of fiber thing. Behind the scenes, it was chosen by me for its slim profile and transportability. I suspect it's not out of tune at all. It sounds great.
That's so cool.
This is the one that's kind of in the character art. And this the black.
Yeah, I see it here in the artwork. I was gonna comment on how cool it looked, and there it is.
Here it is. Well, I really like it. It has this little kind of clip-on microphone thing that I bought so that I can amp it up a little bit acoustically if needed as live.
Mm-hmm.
But the art team kind of interpreted this little detail into sort of like eyes, like organic eyes in the loot. And when I saw that, I was like, well, that's canon. The thing is full of eyes, restless, searching eyes. Yeah.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
So what else has Dobb got?
More equip. Oh yeah. The Hammer of Ethelfrith. That's a pretty big one. Probably one of Dobb's key bits of equipment is this hammer. It summons 60 skeletons.
Okay.
The 60 skeletons will do whatever you ask of them, but they exact a heavy toll for doing so. It's a kind of monkey's paw wishmaster situation. But the hammer is the thing that summons them. All these skeletons kind of live inside the hammer. And it looks really cool. That was a really fun thing as well to kind of see get drawn out, because I've never kind of had a prop for that. I think the art team had to be a bit more, had to be pretty creative with that. But
it's a cool looking hammer.
It just looks super rad. So there's the Hammer of Ethelfrith, from the arc where Dobb is betrothed and intended and engaged, there are some wedding items which I really like. There's a pearl helmet which is worn by Katie Pearlhead, his fiance. She has a big papier-mâché pearl on her head from a previous...
Katie Pearlhead.
Katie Pearlhead. She's actually called Katie Delacour, but she was kind of earned the nickname Katie Pearlhead because she has a big pearl for a head since a papier-mâché pearl was slammed on her head.
As you do.
What else? Oh, and Dobb also has like a series of drinking horns because like Dobb is a bard, and fundamentally bards are supposed to bring the party and facilitate a good time. So
they are the party.
When I imagine Dobb in his idle moments in Idle Champions, I'm imagining him kind of in a tavern, ready with a hornel to pass around. Everyone sings more and carouses more, and eventually tips more. If they've had a few ales. Yeah.
So one of the other things is, actually, hang on. Before I get to that one, I wanted to go back for one thing in the wedding items one. If this one was a spoiler, you can stop me. What? Yeah. Are those sliders? Little burger sliders?
It's a wedding.
Why is there purple stuff coming out of it?
That's because Katie Pearlhead is a professional thief and poisoner, and the kind of running question, which I won't give away the answer to, is she trying to poison Dobb?
That's beautiful.
And take all of his money. Is it a kind of Black Widow situation where she wants to kill him and take the guild's fortunes? Because something else you should know about Dobb is that he's responsible for all the guild's gold, but is very bad with money, doesn't see the point or the value of it, and he stores the entire hoard in a lake that he may or may not remember directions back to.
Yes, I have heard of this lake.
yeah, there you go. So
it's legends.
All, it's all the golden treasures kind of is sort of canonically at the bottom of this lake, and what are Katie Pearlhead's true motivations? Is it love? Is it
a lake?
Or is it a lake? Or is it a lake full of treasures untold?
One of the other ones that you have on here is medicines.
Yeah. This is to do with Dobb's sister, who was eventually found, as I mentioned. And I thought this was really sweet because she basically spent her, she went off for various reasons, didn't find her way back to Dobb. But having got that start of like trying to, mend poorly baby Dobb, she's kind of gone off and basically become a kind of medicine.
Oh, very cool.
Researcher, I suppose she does kind of, she when she was eventually met back up with when Dobb was a grown up. Yeah, that's what she was doing basically. She was, doing kind of medical experiments in a nice way. Not as that sounds quite sinister, doesn't it?
In D&D, it could mean anything.
So there are these nice kind of buff items, or at least I think they're buff items. I assume that's what they.
The items in the game will correspond to different parts of the champion, and then get higher levels in them, and. That's why we got the different versions of it so they can get prettier. So that's the kind of the kind of medical side of things. It's not really something that Dobb does, although he does have a healing spell, and our party doesn't have a dedicated healer, so he does sometimes have to step up to the mark and do a bit of healing. Yep. The other party member we have, Egbert, can also heal, but seems reluctant to do so whenever. I've known those healers.
It's like you're asking a massive favor. It's like, oh, all right. Okay. Which is pretty funny.
Yeah, I've had clerics where they're just like, I just don't see the point of healing in combat, and my fighter's laying on the ground just like, yeah, okay, you do you, buddy.
Yeah. Oh, well, who's going to have to clean this up? Muggins here. Oh, well, I cast some healing. What's it worth to you?
Oh, jeez.
You're the healer. So I would like to kind of find a way to spec Dobb into more of a healing class. So he kind of has that useful. But like It's so funny when people get hurt in D&D. I don't want it to be a case of like, oh, this character has just had their arm shattered under a big stone door or something, and then I can just fix it because it's funnier. And we're, Oxventure's primary aim is to be funny. It's an entertainment.
I mean, that's fair.
First, and serious D&D second. I would much rather we have to go through an adventure with a character whose arm has been shattered under a big stone door. Then just be able to like fix it with a spell.
That might be the best reason I've ever heard for not having a healer to go. It's funny. It's funnier
funny.
That way.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny until we all die, until the total party wipe. But,
I highly doubt that if Oxventure ever had a TPK, that it wouldn't be hilarious.
I hope so. It could happen.
Yeah,
it could happen.
Yeah.
I do know that it's in no way off the table. We play fast and loose with the rules, and Johnny is a generous. That's really understating it. An extremely generous DM. But yeah, there have been like being knocked unconscious. I think a character could die. Probably will die eventually. Yes. I don't see how much longer they can possibly live at this pace. All of them, they're living too fast. It can't go on. Yeah.
But yeah, no. That's some of the equipment that is coming with Dobb, and well, you know that already, viewer, because you're watching this in the future. Remember,
you've already upgraded all of Dobb's equipment.
Yes, exactly.
Haven't you?
I mean, by the time this is playing, it has been 24 hours since Dobb released, so there's a very good chance.
Plenty of time.
I know, right? What is time? It's a lie.
Yeah, plenty of time.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. But I want to change gears a little bit here and talk about the fact that that's not the Oxventure's not the only TTRPG that you all do. What's the other one that you guys play?
Yeah, we do a spin-off series of Blades in the Dark, which, if you're not familiar, is a kind of crime simulator. The book is written by John Harper, who also wrote Lasers and Feelings. If anyone is also familiar with that, that's kind of much more that that's like a one-shot kind of one sheet even kind of thing you can play very quickly. Blades in the Dark is much more substantial. It's a truly spectacular game. Basically, we were looking for a spin-off series to do alongside Oxventure. I was looking for like more GMing opportunity, basically, because it's something that I really started to get into for a long time. I just assumed that to DM or to GM, you basically need to be like born with it as a great gift, and you either like have it or you don't. And I would watch Johnny do it and be like, well, obviously that's completely impossible for any of us to do. It's too hard. But actually, when I brought this to Johnny, they basically offered to sort of teach me. We actually made a video series out of that, instruction process, which was really, really lovely to do. It was actually Johnny who recommended Blades in the Dark as, because they're a huge fan of it. So it was recommended as a game to play for a spin-off series. So I started reading the book and digging into that and basically coming up with the lore of the world. The way we've done it is so Blades in the Dark is a kind of Victorian Gothic thief/crime/gang simulator where you are basically a criminal gang and your job is to do scores, which are like heists, basically. The thing that's super brilliant about it is that it has this mechanic called flashbacks, which means that basically you do very, very little planning for a score, and you kind of are asked to plan backwards as a player. So you're kind of thrown in, you roll some dice basically to see how it's going at the beginning of a heist. You're dropped into it, and then you can use flashbacks to basically paper over any cracks that come up. So, if you're discovered by a guard, you're like, flashback, I met this guard in a tavern and I paid him some gold to let us in, so he knows we're coming, and the GM will be like, okay, all right, that's a bit cheeky, so take one stress. Stress is a thing you count up in Blades in the Dark. You don't want to get it, but it's a useful thing that you can spend. and yeah, so you kind of plan that way and get through. Mechanically, it's a really slick game that I would absolutely recommend anyone checks out. But I kind of wanted it to be canon to the Oxventure. So basically, our version of Blades in the Dark is a lightly modified kind of version of the world, whereby it's basically set hundreds of years in the future. It's a kind of the industrial future of our D&D realm, which is Geth is where it's called. So it's still set in Geth, but in the far future. And magic has kind of left the world under mysterious circumstances, but has been replaced by loads of ghosts and weird machines that basically run off of ghost energy. So it's this kind of industrial revolution, a kind of era of great innovation.
It's a spooky revolution.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it's so it's a brilliant setting. It's called Blades in the Dark because in the setting of this world, it like never gets very bright. Like the whole world is kind of shrouded in darkness as a result of this cataclysmic event, which in my kind of slightly altered version is basically the death of magic and the swapping magic for loads of horrible ghosts. And it's really fun because occasionally it means that I can drop in very, very kind of deep cut references to old Oxventure stuff. There's the gang went on a heist recently where they had to steal a gem from an opera, and the opera was called The Marriage of Lady Fienge, and Lady Fienge is an NPC in Oxventure, in a very early Oxventure actually. And so it's kind of like if that thing that happened in the Oxventure, in the D&D Oxventure, had basically entered into myth and legend over hundreds of years. So it's a kind of very, very twisted. The story no longer resembles anything like what happened, and there are, but all of the NPCs from that adventure, can't kind of come back in this opera. And so this sort of weird. That's
so cool.
So yeah, it's like Blades in the Dark, but there's an opera where a human is kind of wearing a big papier-mâché dragonborn, suit to be Captain Shattershield, who is like singing a poem to Lady Fienge to win her love or something. So yeah, it's a real opportunity to kind of have fun with the lore and do some weird flash forward stuff. I was heavily inspired by Avatar: The Last Airbender, and did you watch that? Or
I haven't gotten all the way through it, but I know a lot about what happens. So
basically, it's a show. You probably know the vibe of the show, but then there's this spin-off series, The Legend of Korra, which is set in the future, and in the time between, basically, there's been a huge kind of industrial revolution, and the world is changing very quickly. So
I was very confused when I first saw a Avatar screenshot and there was a car, and I went, "Hold on."
Yeah, exactly. And it's fun because they're still sort of practicing magic, like from bending from Avatar. But is it as good as a car or a gun or a harpoon or any of the other things they can make? So I think that sort of stuff I'm inherently into moments where high fantasy runs up against kind of non-magical industry stuff. I really love all the bits in Lord of the Rings where like Saruman is like, screw this, I'll just make a factory.
It was really weird, right? It's like we got elves and swords and horses, and then there's like a factory over here putting out
like
smoke.
Saruman's Uruk-hai workhouse or something where they're kind of churning industrialized army building.
But yeah, no, the Blaze in the Dark is absolutely fantastic. I was telling you before we started recording that I've had it since it released, but I'd never gotten to run it. But I have used that flashback mechanic in other TTRPGs because it just works so well.
It's great.
Because I love heist sessions, but I hate the okay, but how are we gonna do this? And there's the 2 hours of conversation trying to figure out how they're going to do it instead of just getting them into the action.
And the other obstacle with heist sessions is that it becomes so important that the plan stays on track.
Yes.
Because you've made the plan, and so everyone is being very cautious and everyone is trying really hard to make the plan work. Blades in the Dark is built so that whenever you roll a dice, statistically you are likely to achieve your goal, but with a complication. So like the way the game progresses, it is always basically drifting off plan, off target. But you have to, embrace that. And there's a lot of kind of rolling with the, it's the bit in like Ocean's 11 or whatever where they get to the door that's supposed to be unlocked and it just isn't.
Yeah.
Something, and it's like, okay, now, figure that out. Adapt your way through this. So.
Those are some of my favorite moments from Ocean's 11. Like the guy that goes into like wire the camera so they can get patched into it, and then the security guards followed him, and you're like, oh no, he's gonna get caught, and he's like, hey, you forgot your thing. Oh, thanks. Okay.
These are the good bits of heists, right? The little bits where the security guard didn't drink the coffee that was laced with the sedative or whatever.
Yep.
So, it's a great game. But I if you're watching this, please do consider checking out Oxventure Presents Blades in the Dark. I have a lot of fun GMing it, and I'm really pleased with, and like the Oxventure group is so fun. Johnny gets to play. Johnny has a character.
That's so good.
Doesn't have to be what's the meme, the like forever DM.
Forever DM, yeah. What was now like you said that you played for the first time on camera. Was this your first time GMing on camera, or like had you tried it out beforehand?
Yes, I actually DM'd, I suppose, an Oxventure as a kind of one-off.
Oh, very cool.
At the sort of conclusion of my Johnny Chiodini School of DMing, basically. That was kind of my final exam.
That's fantastic.
And yeah, that was I think that was basically I think that was the first time. I've since DM'd Oxventure again, but again, there is more of me DMing/GMing on camera than there is off of it. I have run some D&D campaigns for friends. I wrote a TTRPG.
What?
So I had to GM that for a lot of very, very generous playtesting friends who kind of volunteered their time. So
what's it called?
It's called Gravity Rip.
Cool.
Did you ever play games like Wipeout or F-Zero?
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay. So it was basically born out of an immense frustration that I have that they don't make games like that anymore.
Yeah.
Or at least not ones that kind of perfectly capture that vibe. It's a sci-fi anti-gravity racing sim, kind of set in this extremely bombastic and hyper aggressive, lurid future where everyone is a robot or a sentient cloud or some kind of crab.
Sentient cloud.
Yeah, or I think I have like a character generator kind of in the in the book. That's the sort of he's struggling for a character. Well, here's some ideas and stuff, and or a wolf man or something, and and basically you play a sort of racer in the Rip Racing League.
That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah. It was I kind of imagined it to start with being like a PDF that was 1 page long, and it ended up being an enormous project. With like, yeah.
Do you have this up anywhere?
Yeah. You can you can go get it if you go to gravity.rip.
Are you serious? I don't care that this is on the chart. I'm doing this. I gotta see this.
Yeah, go for it.
Gravity.rift?
Rip. Gravity.rip. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this looks so cool.
Yeah, right. It has this brilliant artwork by Colin Craker, who actually did our Blades in the Dark character art as well. It's
oh my god, you got a shark dude on the cover. Some skeleton people. Oh my gosh, this looks so freaking cool.
Thank you.
I'm going to buy this later.
Oh boy,
that's fantastic.
Gosh. Thank you. Yeah, it was great fun to write and immensely challenging.
I bet.
To like, from having never thought about anything like that, I was like, I'm sure. How hard can it be to make, a racing game that works on dice or something? And there are plenty out there. There are kind of fan. There are actually like fan tabletop versions of like the F-Zero. It's like, I miss F-Zero, so I kind of like modded up this game. But they're all they tend to be quite complicated. There are also board games where you can do like F1 board games.
Oh yeah. God, what Formula D? Yeah, that's what I've played that one a bunch of times and love that.
The way they tend to approach it, and they're all very good. And I certainly don't pretend to have like a better idea or anything.
Yeah.
But they tend to approach it like you are kind of fighting against the track. It's like, how well do I do against the track on this one?
Oh, okay.
But I felt to be kind of more true to that F-Zero Wipeout vibe. It's kind of more about like rivalries with particular NPCs.
Oh yeah.
So there's a kind of there's two modes of play in the game. There's one which is kind of story mode where you sort of set up. It's kind of like a sandbox, and you can set up like rivals and evil NPCs and stuff like that. A horrible skeleton who wants to kill you on track and stuff. And then you do the race, and you basically are rolling to see how far you advance or fall back during the course of a lap.
Mm-hmm.
There's the opportunity to slam your car into other people.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was immensely fun and very deeply challenging to create. And so that I did get quite a lot of GM experience with that, because I kind of wrote it and was like, great, game's written, now to play it. And then I played it with some people and the game just didn't work. It was horribly broken, and like everyone came first. And it was like,
It was all just a photo finish.
Yeah, and I was like, wait, hang on. Wait, so if you're in 16th and you move up 2 places, so you're like, does that mean you're in like 14th? Yeah, you must be in 14th, but you've gone 2. So are you in like actually in behind who's in 15th? So there was a lot to wrap my head around, and like trying to distill it into something that was, a readable book. Was a real. A real challenge, but yeah, I'm super proud of it.
That's super cool, dude. This looks fantastic.
Thanks.
And yeah, I love those
this
games.
Whole interview now, just like plugging side projects.
Hey, I mean, come on. If not now, when?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, we'll tell you what. Let's talk a little bit about Outside Xtra. Tell me about that.
Okay. So, Outside Xtra. A bit like Oxventure presents Blades in the Dark is to Oxventure, Outside Xtra is basically a spin-off channel to Outside Xbox, which was started 10 years ago.
Has it really been that long? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, by Jane, Mike, and Andy. And Ellen and I were kind of brought on to launch this second channel. Originally, the idea was that we would basically come on and play non-Xbox games, because, being outside Xbox, there was, they obviously had
a little bit of a precedent there, yeah.
Yeah, a bit of an Xbox focus, as you can imagine. So the idea was, that we would come in and play all of the Nintendo games and PC games and PlayStation games and stuff that they, didn't really feel like they could cover. Since then, I would say like that the lines have become a lot more blurred, and we basically like everyone just plays whatever they want, more or less. But yeah, that is the. That was the kind of original editorial promise. But yeah, we make list videos about video games.
Okay, I have to sneak in a question right here, because
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to this, and it may be widely known, and I just don't know, because my wife loves Outside Xbox and Xtra.
Really?
She's been watching those for years, and
wow.
so I've always walked through it. I've seen you all, but I've always wondered, why is it 7? Why is the list always 7?
Oh, great question that I actually have an answer to. It's a bit of I don't know if there's actually anything to this, but it's a bit of like psychology that we read somewhere, basically, that like the number 7 feels intentional. If it was 10 or 5, then there is a kind of subconscious assumption that you have rounded up or cut something out, to make it 10 or 5. But 7 feels so deliberate that it's like, well, these must be the 7. Of course, that you slightly dent that fiction when you've made literally hundreds of videos that are all like and also when you go back to be like, that video we made about the 7 such and such is in such and such, well, we're doing that one again, but with your comments, because it turns out there were more than 7. And
I do love those ones that just say 7 more.
Definitely, yeah, 7 more, yeah. So that's one aspect to it. Don't get me wrong, I wish it was 4. It would make my working a lot easier if I only had to find 4 examples of a thing and write 4 examples of a thing. But yeah, that's the thinking behind it.
Okay.
And there's a kind of nice flow to it. The videos, if you make a 7 things video, the videos kind of end up, if you give each one enough breathing room, they end up being like between kind of 15 and 20 minutes, which feels like a good length.
Oh yeah, no, that's the thing that I've always enjoyed about y'all's videos is that like you give enough time to each thing that sometimes by the time you're done talking about one of the ones and you're like, number 6, I'm like, oh, I forgot this was a list. I was just watching what they were talking about.
It's nice. It gives you some like breathing room to like throw in a few hopefully funny jokes, and also to, if there's something else you want to say about the game at the same time, like if there's I don't know, we did a list about I'm going to completely fail to think of an example of this, but for example, we did a list video about useless cheat codes, like cheat codes that sucked basically, that didn't help. Whereas a cheat code is supposed to help you, these ones didn't.
Like
and
the GTA 3 one where it turns everyone trying to kill you and then it ruins your entire save by accident. I'm not talking about that from experience at all.
Oh, you did that. I'm so sorry.
I accidentally saved and it ruined everything.
No. Bad times.
It was the last mission too. So every time I would go up there, immediately the guards would just kill Mercedes because they all just started shooting.
Okay. So yeah, that kind of thing. Sometimes if you're writing about that, the game will have like a second cheat that is also pretty funny and stupid. And if you've given, if you have this kind of breathing room to talk about it, you can be like, it's not as bad as such as that, or at least it doesn't say only marginally better than the other cheat where, something like that. So you can kind of, normally in the process of researching this stuff, you dig up like loads of funny, weird factoids about like the game or the genre, and so it's nice to be able to kind of mention those. You don't always get to put them in. I'm sure it'll be up already by the time this goes out, but I was writing about Crocomire, a Metroid monster in in one thing, and in the process of researching it, I found out that there are Crocomire skulls in one of the Castlevania games as a kind of nod to the series, like an Easter egg.
Oh, really?
And then I went and looked that up, and I was like, "Oh, hell, look, wow, that's so cool." You probably wouldn't even notice that, but if you know what Crocomire's skull looks like, that's it. There's Crocomire skulls all over this thing. That was a cool thing that they put in Castlevania. But yeah, that didn't make it into the video. But I try and like file that stuff away, or ideally use it to think of another list to write, because it is a pretty endless content treadmill we're on and on. If you have an idea for a list, please let me know. I always gratefully receive it. Yeah.
I will keep that in mind. If my wife comes up with any, I'll send them your way.
Oh God, please do. Please send them all. They'll all get made.
Luke, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me today. We've actually talked for 50 minutes here.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Thank you so much for joining me. If people wanted to find you and even though we just talked about stuff that you do on the interwebs, anything else like that, where can they find that?
Oh gosh. All right. Welcome to the Luke Westaway Plugathon.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, I'm on Instagram and Twitter, but social media sucks, right? You don't want to do that. You want to engage with that in any way. You can find me on Outside Xtra at YouTube. I host a podcast with my Outside Xbox co-host, Andy Farrant, where we talk about Disney Channel original movies from the late 90s and early noughties.
Oh my God, I love those.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, at the point of doing this, there are only a couple of episodes out because it recently launched, but we have recorded more. We've done. If
you ever need a third person for talking about Disney Channel movies,
we can. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a?
Oh man.
Is it Xenon?
Don't Look Under the Bed.
Don't Look Under the Bed is so good.
So good.
We're going to have a real problem because these episodes come out fortnightly, and Halloween is, only going to be a few episodes, but the DCOM Halloween.
And there's so many of them.
Yeah. Like
Under Wraps.
Don't Look Under the Bed, which is brilliant. Or do we do Under Wraps and its recent remake? Or do
Wait, what?
Yeah, they recently, it's on Disney Plus. They remade Under Wraps.
I'm gonna watch this later today.
It's a faithful remake in that it's just as bonkers and inexplicable. And I was like, I don't know if I want to watch a recent Under Wraps, because what if they made it like good? But they didn't.
The important question is, does the Mummy listen to All by Myself?
I don't think it still does, but it is still fundamentally like looking for love, which is the thing I find so funny about Under Wraps, is that these kids find a mummy and the mummy's like, so I'm lonely.
Yeah, but I've never had a girlfriend.
I miss my girl. So they have to like get the mummy a girl.
Oh my God, Disney Channel movies! What a trip!
Preserved, yeah.
So what's the name of the show?
It's called Mom Can't Cook. MOM, spelled like the US spelling of mum. Mom Can't Cook, because as you'll know from watching lots of Disney Channel original movies, the mum for some reason can never cook.
Never
is all, you know. We're about to record 13th year, which is about
so good.
Yeah, so good. And the mum comes out in that. It's like, here's your beetroot birthday cake, and the dad's like, oh honey,
ooh, you're lucky your son's a mermaid.
Yeah, you're about to have bigger problems than the beetroot cake. So that's, it's really fun to do, and the reception has been it's really weird actually, because in the UK this just wasn't a thing, like Disney Channel.
Oh really?
Movies, like we didn't see any of this stuff until Disney Plus launched, and we found out that there was this huge trove of bad TV movies
okay,
that, you know, from the past. But it's actually been incredible, because, you know, when I speak to people from the UK, they're like, okay, okay, right, all right, sounds good. But, you know, mention it to, you know, someone stateside, and they're like,
oh yeah, no,
Smart House, or, you know,
oh yeah,
like that.
no,
so
I was into all that. I was there every Friday night. Random piece of trivia. I know we're going over time, but I don't care. Hocus Pocus was originally supposed to be a Disney Channel original movie.
No way. That makes so much sense.
When you watch that movie, you're like, all of this lines up. Every single part of this lines up.
I mean, they accidentally made Hocus Pocus is obviously too good.
Oh yeah,
to qualify for decom status, and obviously has that star power that disqualifies it.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, wait, how much are we going to pay actors for this? No, we're putting this on a screen.
No, we can do it, but the movie will have to be 1 minute long.
So besides Mom Can't Cook, where else can people find you?
You can find me on Outside Xtra. I also make music. The Plugathon continues.
I saw that.
So yeah, you can find me on Spotify or iTunes, and, you know, other streaming places like that. You search my name. I have a few kind of albums and EPs and stuff under my name. And of course, you can also find Dobb on Idle Champions.
Yeah,
which is so pleasing to me.
Well, thank you again, Luke, so much for coming on and talking with me.
Thank you for having me.
I cannot wait to add Dobb to my formation, but you out there, viewers, have already done so. And if you haven't, Bright Swords is going on right now, and you can unlock Dobb and add him to your Oxventure formation. I almost screwed up my own words there, but I didn't. That is going to do it for this week's episode of Idle Insight. So until next week, take care of yourself.